This simple switch enables me to pull nearly all of my favorite espresso extractions, from traditional pre-infusion to blooming espresso. And this is a Rancilio Silvia Pro that I picked up in San Francisco to show you just how easy this modification is. So I realized that a lot of the mods that I've featured on my channel are a bit inaccessible, and I wanted to show you guys what I do when I pick up a new machine like this and what's the first sort of step that I take. So I started to think about all the mods that I've done over the years and reduce them down to their essentials. So on my GS3, really the main feature that I use the most is the ability to turn on or off the pump whenever I want. And as a refresher, when you typically start a shot of espresso, you're opening a valve and turning on a pump. And we usually don't think of those as individual events because they always happen at the same time. So what that means is we're typically only able to use a flat pressure profile, which on a machine like this is typically around 9 bar. Granted, a machine like this does use a vibratory pump, which tends to take a few seconds to ramp up to that pressure. However, by taking manual control of the pump, I'm able to bring that up to 9 bar or drop it back down or bring it back up at whatever point in the shot that I want. Now, you may be thinking about the dimmer mod, which uses a AC dimmer switch to vary between 0 and 9 bar and anywhere between. Granted, there is some challenges with packaging in that modification because it does require that you essentially drill a hole into your espresso machine. And I wanted to think about something that was similar that didn't require irreversible modifications to a machine. So this switch, on the other hand, is completely reversible and is applicable to plenty of machines out there, like the Silvia Pro, and the Gaggia Classic, which I may have one over there. So to get started, all you need is a new 2-channel switch that has the ability to fit in the same slot as an original switch, and a male-female Spade connector cable, in addition to a female-female cable of the same length. And in my case, I use a very short male-to-male Spade connector cable. So after unplugging the machine, you're going to want to go ahead and get access to the switch that you're going to swap out. I'm picking the power switch because that's the only latching switch, and that is the style that the switch that I'm replacing it with also has. Because one of the channels is now shorted out, I only need to turn on the machine with one of the channels, which is going to be done by the 1/2 of that switch. So I go ahead and unplug the switch, and on the cable, I short out one of the 2 channels with the male-to-male cable. And yes, I can already hear some of you typing away saying how unsafe this is, and part of the system is live when you plug in the machine. And fortunately, this is only isolated to the very few circuits in the machine. It doesn't go to the heaters, and it's significantly safer than some more simplistic machines like a La Pavoni. So because the right half of the new switch is now being used to turn on and off one channel of the power to the machine, I can now use the left half of the switch to control the power to the pump. And the way this is executed is by wiring this switch in series with the pump. So that means that when I turn off that switch, I cut off the flow of electricity to the pump. So to route that pump power through the switch, I need to connect each of those very long cables to the switch and route them towards the pump. Plugging these wires into the switch is simple enough, but I then need to find an equivalent set of Spade connectors for the pump. So fortunately, there is a Spade connector that I can disconnect and then connect these 2 new wires to each of the male and female connectors with their respective connectors. So with this new schematic and everything all wired up, the switch now cuts off power to the pump, and I have full control whenever the pump is running. So now with everything buttoned back up, I can go ahead and try it out. So if I turn everything on as normal, pump turns on, water comes out, but I can kill it. And yet the valve is still open, and we're still brewing a shot, technically. But I can go ahead and turn it back on, off, on, do whatever I want. That's it. And one of my favorite things about this is even with this added functionality, you can barely tell that anything's even been done to this machine. But let's go ahead and run through kinds of shots that I like to pull with this sort of setup. So to execute a kind of blooming espresso, I'll go ahead and start a normal shot. Once I start seeing some drips, I'll kill the pump. Like that. I'll wait a certain set of seconds, and then ramp back up to full pressure by turning the pump back on. And then I'm gonna have a bit of a turbo shot here, so I'm gonna kill it at a pretty high weight, right about there. And and that's a sort of blooming espresso. I can also just use a really traditional style of just pre-infusing the espresso with some low pressure water and then turning on the pump after a certain number of seconds. That's actually a feature that the nicer Pro X model has that this one doesn't, but now I just do it fully manually instead of via computer. So I'll first turn off the pump and then turn on the valve. And then I'm going to say after about 5 seconds, I'm going to turn on the pump, let it ramp back up the pressure, and brew my shot. So does this change make much of an impact on your brewing experience? Well, I would say yes, because my primary focus on brewing espresso is consistency. If I made a great shot, I want to make sure that I can make it again, exactly the same way. And when it comes to doing things sort of like pre-infusion like I just did, that can reduce the amount of defects in my espresso that are caused by defects in my puck preparation. So if I had uneven tamping, or if I didn't distribute my grinds very well, then by exaggerating the pre-infusion, I'm able to reduce the ramifications of that. And I was able to prove that by dragging out this pre-infusion, I did experience a little bit less channeling. So after pulling a series of 10 shots, I had just a regular non-pre-infusion espresso, and it seemed to run pretty well, but I did have a couple of shots that seemed to channel, and I could visually tell. But once I switched to a more exaggerated pre-infusion, I saw significantly less of this. Now granted, when I was doing this test, I didn't see a major difference in the average flow rate of these shots, in that they didn't seem to vary, like there wasn't an extremely fast shot every once in a while during this channeling, and anything sticking out like that. But there are definitely other pros with empowering yourself with pressure profiling. By giving yourself more flexibility with your shot, you have the ability to experiment more with espresso at a relatively low cost of entry. And so that's why I'm excited that with this machine and a simple modification, I'm able to do just about everything that I've ever wanted to do with espresso, and this has actually been my daily driver for the last couple months. So let me know what you think. Do you think this is pointless relative to the dimmer switch mod or not? Let me know. Or maybe you've already tried this. I'd love to hear about whatever unusual type of espresso you're pulling with this. Or maybe it's not even espresso. But anyways, peace out. I will see you at SCA 2023. Maybe it's not even espresso. 2023.